Welcome back, and this is the Energy Outlook. So, our conversation today is on achieving sustainable energy future. And my guest today, like I said earlier, should work in Nigeria, and she has recently moved into a new role in Ghana. And like you know, Nigeria and Ghana, they have certain similarities when you talk about their energy sector. And both countries have recently, published their energy transition plan, and quite a lot is happening to ensure that there's transition happening and they're achieving energy security. So our conversation today we focus on, but how can we sustain? How can we achieve that sustainable energy future? Not just for Nigeria, looking at Ghana, looking at Africa, in that big focus. All right. Without much ado, my guest is Oluwatobi Shofowora, who is country manager for Ghana at Tetracor Energy Group. Toby, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Nice, nice. First, I want to say congratulations on your recent role as country manager in Ghana for Tetracor. When I saw that announcement of your role, I was indeed pleased because I'm one of those who is fond of your expertise when you talk about gas and the energy sector in many of the energy conferences. And I say, "Ooh, that's a woman rising again." So once again, congratulations,
Thank you.
Toby.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Yes.
Thank you.
But before we get into our conversation, I really want to ask you, how is the new role? How is Ghana treating you? And hope you have been able to settle in March.
Well, I'm settling in. There's a lot of work to be done, but yeah, it's quite interesting. It's been interesting. It's been challenging personally, but I get points, right? So yeah, but I'm
Nice.
settling in fine. Thank you very much for asking.
Nice. Okay. I'm happy to hear that. Ghana treats everybody well. So I'm a fan of that.
Yes.
Let us see. All right. So I know of some of the exploits and of course positive achievements, in fact fantastic achievement of Tetracor in Nigeria, and so learning of your new role and as the company makes a solid entrance into Ghana, I wanted to ask what strategies, and this is my way of starting our conversation, is what strategies do you plan to implement to replicate the successes that Tetracor has indeed achieved in Nigeria over the years?
All right. Yeah, thank you very much, Wisdom, for asking. So I think off the bat, what I'll just say is that one of the strongest advantages for us at Tetracor is that from the get-go, we've always been focused on seeing how we can bring innovation to the vision of the nation as it pertains to natural gas utilization, localizing natural gas utilization. So I think one of the core strategies is replicating Nigeria's gas for growth campaigns, right, to drive natural gas utilization and adoption amongst businesses and transporters, right, here in Ghana, right. Another would be to collaborate with the Ghanaian government to co-invest in infrastructure, to mirror some proven and tested models, right, that we have executed in Nigeria, while ensuring that we are leveraging the unique strengths and opportunities, of the Ghana energy sector, because the energy sector here is dynamic. It has its own strengths, its own, advantages and opportunities. So even though it's quite similar with what, with Nigeria, the plan is to leverage its own uniqueness, its unique strengths and the unique opportunities that are available in the sector here. Also in Nigeria, one of our core strategies at Tetracor is modular, right? Modular, innovative solutions that are quick to test, quick to prove, quick to push to the market. And the plan is to also see how we can replicate that here. But ultimately, the goal is to drive local gas utilization, domestic gas utilization.
Fantastic. So driving local gas utilization, and that brings me to my next question. And now that you're in there, I mean, you've been quite in Nigeria for a long time. I don't know if you've been able to compare what the energy landscape is. You said Nigeria and Ghana are similar, but they are quite different in a way. But have you been able to compare the current energy landscape in Ghana with what we have in Nigeria to be able to spot indeed where those differences lie and how you hope to drive or localize that gas utilization in Ghana?
Yes. Okay. So I'll say that maybe I'll just discuss some of the strengths of both nations, right, as it
Okay.
pertains to the energy sector. For Nigeria, we know that we have vast gas reserves. Our unproven reserves run, almost 600 TCF. That's trillion cubic feet, and we have proven reserves of almost 210, trillion cubic feet. Uh, Downstream sector is very robust. Our virtual pipeline, the virtual pipeline part of the value chain, also very robust. We have larger installed electricity capacity if we compare to Ghana. And for Ghana, I think some of the strengths that I've seen in the short time I've been here is that there's a stable regulatory framework, guiding their adoption, the policy landscape in the sector. And I think Ghana also has been able to do a lot with the renewable integration. I think by now they're doing almost 38% renewable integration in their energy mix, right? And they also have lower transmission losses than Nigeria, even though in recent times, there's been a lot of there's been increased losses in their electricity transmission, if I can put it like that. But one thing I'll say is that our challenges are quite similar, right?
Okay.
So, and while we have our unique strengths as nations, our challenges are quite similar. And, it's around limited distribution infrastructure, like gas pipeline networks. We have funding gaps, both nations. And then, for Nigeria, I think one of our key challenges would, especially around the power, would be grid instability, vandalism in our upstream, policy fragmentation. Those are some of the challenges that we have that are unique, to Nigeria. But ultimately, I would say that Ghana has structured policies and a structured approach to implementing its energy policies. And for us in Nigeria, I think we have larger, let me put it that way, larger of everything, right? But we are riddled with operational inefficiencies, and these are some of the key differences that I've observed in the time that I've been here.
Interesting analysis. Yes, I mean I agree with quite a lot of the points you have made, but despite the progress, power shortages and limited gas infrastructure remain a major hurdle for both countries. I know when I lived in Ghana at the time, I noticed there were steady power supply, but at the same time also there were high costs or at the pump stations when you go. And there were still some gaps when you talk about gas, I mean, infrastructure, like you talked about the networking and all of that. So, from your perspective, my question is, what is or what is critically missing, or what are the critical missing elements to truly achieve a sustainable energy future? And I want you to break this down when you look at Nigeria, our unique challenges, where it is you feel like we need to, or is still missing, we need to get right from what you have just analyzed. And let's look at also Ghana in a way, because you're in Ghana, and see where both of that meet at the center. What are we still missing when we talk about these issues we are facing around gas infrastructure and power itself?
All right, thank you very much, Wisdom. So I'll start from both, and then, just as you said, I'll drill down into both Ghana and Nigeria. For both, nations or both countries, we are caught between reform gains, systemic crisis. And I think that ultimately the missing link, right, is the political will to prioritize infrastructure over short-term populism, or whatever we want to call it. Is to play the long game for both nations. I think that's still the missing link. We have administrations coming and going with their own energy agendas, and one of the things that we don't have is continuity or consistency, right, in the way that we implement the policies, right, that we come up with for both. And I've seen that in both nations. I've seen that in both Ghana and in both Nigeria. So if we then drill in, if we want to drill down, right, for Nigeria and I guess for Ghana as well, infrastructure, it would always be key, and we would always bring it up in every conversation, because until no matter, recently now we announced, Nigeria announced the $8 billion that it's secured for, deep water offshore projects. We still have an evacuation problem, and that's the reason why, even with the huge quantity of gas that we're producing as a nation, only about 20% of those make it to the domestic market, right? So while we have larger of everything, Ghana is doing almost 90% utilization of the natural gas they produce. We are struggling with getting 20%, in Nigeria, 20% of what we produce to the domestic market, right? And so for both nations, I believe infrastructure is still a key missing link. And it's still something that we would pay attention to, especially as natural gas becomes the key fuel, right? That provides the baseline energy supply that we need, right? In this transition effort, right? In the net zero transition effort, and so I would say that accelerating infrastructure both domestically and both regionally, bilateral gas pipeline infrastructure, or cross-country infrastructure like we have with the West African gas pipeline, and the some of the ones we're naming now, like the Morocco pipeline, and all. So these are some of the missing links, right, that we still have, that I believe that for both nations, if we can get to the point where we are able to do much around that, we would, be able to close some gaps, right? In our pursuit of energy security, if I can put it that way. Financing is also, another area that I will talk about, right? It's still a missing link. I think that we have a lot of projects, and while, there's the conversation around whether they're bankable or not, the good thing is that there are projects to be funded, right? But we have a huge gap where it comes to financing those projects. And I think that, beginning to look, I believe we must begin to look inward, right, as a continent, on how to get, or how to achieve blended funding models, right, to be able to finance the projects that we have.
Interesting. From what you were saying,
So, okay, I was just trying to check that you can still hear me. Sorry, it's frozen here. So I think the last one I'll just talk about is technology.
okay.
At this point, it's almost like we're inheriting used technology from the West. And I believe that, the missing link for us is technology, and not just the deployment of the technology itself. The R&D part as well is important. I think it was in Mozambique recently where, they're working on solar powered hearing aids, right? I mean, you can see that, some research has gone into being able to achieve that. And I think because of the resources that we have as a continent, there's so much more we can do, right? If we just, do a bit of work around our research and development activities as well. So I think I'll just stop there.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to say that what I picked something from what you were saying, that Ghana has 90% gas utilization. Could you broaden that for me, please?
Okay, so I mean domestic utilization. So of all
Okay.
the gas that they produce, and I think right now they are doing about, is it 8 billion, I think 800 million cubic feet thereabout per day also.
Mm-hmm.
um, about 90% of that is used for power generation, right,
Wow.
in country and for, some of their industries, and only about 10%, is exported, right? But for Nigeria, it's flipped more or less. We're doing about 20% domestically, and we're doing, or in the domestic market, and we're doing
Right.
roughly about maybe 45% thereabout for export,
Mm.
right? That's the NLNG, that's our LNG exports. We're doing almost about 45% of our volume for export. So that's what I mean by, so there's I think the entire strategy um, for Ghana's natural gas is domestic utilization, and they've been able to demonstrate that. So I think lesson learned for us in Nigeria right there.
Impressive. So I wanted to bring the conversation home now, as you were saying before, that we need to look inwards. And I, for one, have
Yeah.
followed Tetraco's work for quite a long time. I'm very familiar with a few of what the company has been doing. And I know that the company has made significant investment in CNG, and expanded its downstream gas and gas to power operations in Nigeria. I mean, over this period of time. So my question is, which successful initiative do you have, or do you believe could be adapted for Ghana's market, especially when we talk about CNG? I don't want to go so deep and ask maybe how do you see the CNG penetration in Nigeria and all of that. I just think that Tetraco has made quite a significant progress and good investment in the CNG in market. But I wanted to know that what are you adapting when you look at the Ghana market? It seemed to me from what you shared earlier that it's going to be an easy ride. Or will I be wrong?
Well, I mean, the whole point of the work we're doing is to see how we can turn challenges around. So, um, it won't be easy, but if it were easy, I mean, everybody would do it. So, I guess that the challenge is why we are here. So,
Of course.
I would say so. Interestingly, our Tetracore secured the first CNG license in Ghana. So, it's a virgin market, if I'll say so. So, our CNG will probably be the first in Ghana, right? And so you can imagine that it's a lot of sensitization that needs to happen, right? Especially because we know the challenges even in Nigeria associated with CNG, where safety concerns, operational concerns are discussed. And so I think that doing the groundwork sensitization to get the buy-in of the prospective users is one of the initiatives that and we did quite a lot of that as well in Nigeria. But you know that Nigeria already has sort of like a national drive, right, for CNG. So the sensitization is happening at a national level, but for Ghana that's not the case. And so we would probably be doing the groundwork, to do the sensitization, even as it pertains to auto CNG as well. So we're talking vehicle conversions, we're talking auto CNG orbs, mobile auto refueling stations, and we're talking CNG to industry, CNG to power, right? So it's a lot of
Hard
conversations
work.
happening across all levels, the regulatory level, safety concerns, users, off takers, Ministry of Transportation, right? Because you're going to put in a lot of trucks, virtual pipeline. I mean, that's why you're going to put in a lot of trucks on the road, right? So I mean, that's where I think the core work is going to be. And once we're able to achieve that, it should be a smooth ride because it will be replicating infrastructure wise, it will be replicating what we've already done. So I think that where the work would be is the sensitization.
Impressive, and congratulations to the company, of course, on that license
Thank you.
and the operations into Ghana. But we'll take a short break. And when we come back, I want to take Toby into a different realm of this conversation. We'll talk policy and we'll look at other areas of this conversation on looking at sustainable energy for the future. And I have quite a lot of questions to still throw at her, of course, and considering her role in Ghana and leading the company into that direction. So stay with us. Don't go away. We'll be right back, and you don't want to miss the conversation. Stay with me. Welcome back, and this is the Energy Outlook. I've been speaking to Oluwatobi Shofowora, who is a country manager Ghana for Tetracol Energy Group. All right, so Toby, if you're still with me, but I want to take you into the policy side of our conversation now, and uh, what are the bottlenecks policy-wise that you still see persist? I mean, from all the critical work Tetraco has done in Nigeria, building those infrastructure, getting those licenses, the CNG and all of that. When you look at the sector in itself as a whole, do we still have some policy bottlenecks that you think that should have eased up now in Nigeria? And as you answer that, of course, I'd like you to now look at Ghana. If in the short time you've been there, if you see some bottlenecks policy-wise, and where those challenges lie that we can pick some lessons from.
Okay. Thank you, Wisdom. I'm still here. Okay, so for Nigeria, and I'll be speaking um in an umbrella way. I think that we have policy gas pricing disputes. I mean, as recent as this month, we're still having gas pricing disputes, regulators, upstream, midstream, downstream operators, the power sector, right? And it's still an issue that is persisting, right? We have the PIA, and I think that we can do better around implementation, right? Whilst I mean, from the get-go, it had seemed that the rollout will be phased. I think that with where we are as a country, uh, uh, in the with our energy sector being where it is globally, I think that we can do better in the implementation, right, of the PIA. And well, there's still the FX liquidity issues that were areas or policy bottlenecks that are would I say that are common, or that I've seen in Nigeria. For Ghana, um well, I would say that there is a bit of bureaucratic delay as it concerns private, public partnerships, the execution. And, we've seen how private public partnerships has leapfrogged the Nigerian energy sector. And I think that to see that kind of speed with project execution, right, and expansion in Ghana, there is a lot of work to be done around executing private-public partnerships, so that we can achieve more or less what the goals that the nation wants to achieve with the energy sector. And if we look at Africa as a whole, there's a lot of fragmented regulations, right? We've been talking about our African single electricity market, intra-African trade, and it seems that right now a lot of conversations are happening, but we can break this down into granular, actionable steps that we can begin to see some tractions, right? And I think that as a whole, as a continent, these are areas where I'm seeing some policy bottlenecks that, uh, maybe slowing down progress, if I put it like that. So And I think that the solution or the way to look at this is if we harmonize regionally our energy policy, we can fast track projects. Some projects have been in the pipeline for decades. We can fast track projects, establish, a more or a faster growing sector as a continent. And we can see the impact of energy in the developed nations. And I think that, putting in the work to have that is something that we need to do as a nation and as a continent as well.
So, the next conversation is looking at energy security versus energy transition. It seems to be a very burning topic whenever you go to any of these energy events. Of course, people are debating, should Africa be transitioning, or should we focus on energy security, especially when we know that 300 million Africans lack access to energy. So I'm asking this because I want you to be able to mirror or look at Ghana and Nigeria, which you've had the privilege of having this both experience now, even though it's just a short time in Ghana. But when we look at energy transition, what is your view on these two topics of transitioning or focusing on energy security as a country?
All right. Thank you very much, Wisdom. My the way I respond to this question all the time, and I think I'm going to do that now, is why does it have to be either? Why it's almost like we are being propositioned to pick one. And my question every time, I encounter this conversation is why? Why do we have to pick? The goal, ultimate goal for every nation is to achieve energy security, right? And as a continent, more so, the gap, that we have is huge. The gap we're looking to bridge is huge. So at this point, I don't think that this is the time to be considering a choice. The long-term goal is to achieve energy security. How we get, and as I always say, energy transition, net zero, we have all of this. Every country, as you said earlier in the conversation, has released their policy or their frameworks around, how when they want to achieve net zero and all. But I would say this: our approach, at no time in history have we, you know, had just one source of fuel, right, for energy. It's always been a mix, right? And so now it's almost like we're now trying to pick one. I think that what we should be looking more to do is to clean up our mix so that we achieve an energy mix that is able to support our base load energy requirements while we then build towards achieving energy security. Right. And this is my position where it concerns, the energy transition debate versus energy security. The energy security is a long-term game for everybody, right? For every
Okay.
nation, especially we on this side, right, of development, is a long-term game for us. And this is not the time to look at our hydro, look at our solar. We are not there yet. Ghana is doing about 2%, most 3%. Nigeria, about 1% of our mix is renewable. So what's the plan? To phase out everything else and rely on renewables?
So
While
that
it's
brings
a
me
it's a it's a
to the other
fantastic
part,
ambition.
Toby. So that brings to the other part on readiness. In terms of
Yeah.
readiness and that strategic planning, to any of this side, either we are achieving energy security or we are ensuring the transition, which I like to say it has to be a just transition. Where do you see readiness in either
Yeah.
side of this conversation? Do you see readiness? Let me not make that question too long for you.
Can you take that again? You're breaking a bit.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes. It's better now.
Okay. I was saying that from what you were saying, my next question is now that where, in terms of readiness and strategic planning, where do you see the both countries going, especially maybe African-wide, if you could expand that a bit, and particularly from Nigeria? Do you see any readiness either achieving that energy security or the transition? Like you said, why should it be either or? It's something that really could work simultaneously. But do you see readiness in your view?
Um, I would say yes, right? I would say yes. And, we launched our energy transition plan in, I think, 2022, right? And our
2023.
target is 30% renewable energy integration by 2030, right? And one of the key goals, in that plan is the electrification of 5 million homes with solar, right? What I'm seeing happening is that, a lot of the delay with whether um, we are able to achieve this lies with some of the challenges we've earlier discussed, right? So
Okay.
I don't think the issue is readiness. I think the issue is how we tackle the challenges that has kept us from achieving these goals we have clearly set at the pace that we probably have planned, right? And I know that at some point we had secured about 10 billion in financing pledges, right? What is the status of those pledges, right? Earlier we had discussed, a mix or a blended financing model, right, for our projects. What is the status, of those conversations? And this extends to both Ghana and the continent as a whole. So we have silo plans and projects that every nation is trying to target. I think for Ghana, is the transition plan 2070, right? To achieve, I think theirs is about 30 or 40% integration of renewable, right, in the energy mix, and to achieve net zero by 2070. All of these goals are nice, but what is the implementation plan? And I say we are ready because even putting this together, determining where we want to be, is part of getting ourselves ready. But I believe that we need to tackle the bottlenecks that we have identified. And we discuss this at almost every conference, but we still need to come to a game plan. What is the plan to tackle these challenges and to monitor them until we achieve, what we've set out to achieve?
Amazing, amazing. Okay, I think I agree with you. So I'm not going to push you any further on that question. But you said something before.
Okay.
You spoke about technology, as one of those areas, and I wanted to look at it from beyond infrastructure and investment. There seems to be a critical role that technology, maybe innovation and technology, needs to play if we talk about a sustainable energy future. And I wanted to talk about that a bit to share your thoughts on and broaden that topic on technology, on where you see the role of technology innovation, making us move a bit faster, if you maybe put it that way, as we achieve a sustainable energy future. Where do you see energy and innovation playing more critically beyond infrastructure and investment?
All right, beyond infrastructure, I mean, I was going to start with infrastructure, but you said beyond infrastructure and
Or you
investment.
can add that so that I don't
I
limit
think it will
your
come
thought. You
down
can
to,
add that so I don't limit your thoughts.
I mean, if we go into that, we'll probably be here all evening because that's then the whole carbon conversation, right? So I agree with you that, okay, beyond investment and infrastructure, digitalization, right? There is a digital transformation that needs to happen beyond the would I say the classic technology adoption. Right now, we're talking AI, and we're still battling with basic collection issues, right, in our current energy framework, right? And I think that technology will serve um, would getting our sector to the next level, right? So we're looking at right now. I know that there are certain companies, solar companies in Nigeria that are already doing, pay as you go solar arrangements, right? And I know that that is growing a lot with the epileptic power issues, right? So majorly technology is going to do a lot of harmonizing our fragmented systems. And I think that beyond infrastructure, just as you said, it's going to come to the downstream, the B2B or the B2C, right? And to help us clean up the losses in that area. Because ultimately, Nigeria, where our losses, our transmission losses going up to almost 40%. That is almost three times the global standard, which is about, I think, 7 to 10%, right? So it's a lot. And I think that where we'll see, where we can really incorporate AI or technology, digital transformation and things like that is in that part of our value chain. Because ultimately the debts that we keep talking about, right? The monies owed here and there, there's a deeper issue or a deeper root in the B2B, B2C sector, right? Where, and that's, it's what's the word I'm looking for now? That's what we are seeing up there, right? And I believe that technology can clean up that process across the value chain and help us achieve a more efficient, help us achieve efficiency basically across the entire value chain.
So are you saying that more of the investment which we are getting, we need to look at channeling it to digitalization? But should that be
Absolutely.
an area where we need to start looking at?
It's an area where we're not looking at it is why it's one of the reasons we're where we are now. So I think that we are way past the time to start looking at it. But yes, I would say that I agree with you that it's time we start channeling some investment into incorporating some, digitalization in the sector.
Amazing, Toby. Before I let you go, my final question to, I mean, there's a lot I want to ask you if you allow me for the whole of the evening. But I wanted to now ask you, my final question is looking at where is that now? The ECOWAS or AFCFTAA frameworks. Is there a role where the ECOWAS or the AFCFTA can play in fast tracking some of these processes when we look at investment, calling investment into the region, improving trade? Should there be harmonizing of different policies and all of that? And as you answer that, in the next couple of months, maybe you want to give us hint of where you will be focusing on majorly for your role in Ghana and where you need help.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. So I believe that those platforms, that you've mentioned, ECOWAS, AFCTF, those platforms are a move in the right direction. But
Okay?
again, it's not about the frameworks that we have designed, is what is our game plan to implementation. We have
Okay.
had and have been part of a couple of discourse, right, on these platforms. But that seems to be where we are stuck, for lack of a better word. And I think that a continent-wide energy transition framework, right, on the back of these platforms is one area where we should be looking at. Because again, we have all of these silo plans, we have these fragmented policies here and there, right? And it's making it difficult to harmonize as a continent. And we have real issues. We have financing, right? That I believe that using these platforms to drive, if we come together as a continent, we can make headway, right?
Okay.
We can find models that work amongst ourselves without
All
relying
right.
on the West, right?
Yeah.
For foreign direct investments, and
So,
all of that. So I think that yes, it's a move in the right direction, but we
okay.
need to go behind, we need to go beyond having conversations and actually design and actionable. Doesn't have to be anything grand. We can start modular. Okay, what nations we can have
So
what we call
so because of time,
sorry, time, yes,
because
okay.
of time, I will
But
cut you
that's
there.
the summary of
Apologies
that.
because of time. But
No
but
problem.
I wanted to, before I let you go, where do you need help in Ghana now? Now that your operation is fully starting, in 30 seconds, if you want to tell me, where do you think you need help?
I mean, where I would say that, not just me, I think the sector generally, again, as I mentioned earlier, is around execution, speedy execution of public-private partnerships, right? Because there are
Okay,
people who want to do the work, who want to bring the funding,
okay,
and we just need some speed, in
all right.
executing those arrangements so we
All
can
right.
get to
Well,
work.
that's a fine place to leave it, Toby. And as a Ghanaian, we say, Aiko,
Yes, yes.
well done for the work you're doing. Yes, I've not forgotten
Medase,
my Fante, so I
medase,
still try. I still try.
medase, medase.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. Why?
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Toby. I was speaking to Oluwatobi Shofowora, who is the country manager for Ghana operations for Tetracor, and we can talk about this all evening if you let us. But because of time, and time is not with us, we want to say thank you, Toby, for finding the time to be on the show. We'll keep following your progress, and of course, we look forward to you achieving success. But this is a fine place to leave it for the evening. And it's been an interesting conversation, if you ask me. And I will just tell you that the energy is golden. It's a golden thread that connects economic growth, social equity, and environmental sustainability. A future without sustainable energy is a future without opportunity. And this of course, a quote by Damilola Ogubi, who is the CEO of SE for All. But this is a fine place to live until next week. My name is Wisdom Chap Jumbo, and you can catch the episode on our YouTube channel at Official Upgrade TV, just in case you're meeting us at the tail end of the conversation. But you can catch all episodes on Official Upgrade TV. Thank you so much. We'll be back again next week, same station, same time, and you catch us with another very interesting energy conversation to lead you into the future. Here, energy means business. Have a lovely weekend. Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I need to see light for my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we'll bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we'll analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business.